Welcome along to the Met Office 10-day trend, 10 days that promise some fairly lively weather. There are a few elements of uncertainty. It kind of breaks down into 4 time zones, really. The next few days, fairly straightforward. There'll be some sunshine, there'll be a lot more blustery showers. Bit of a question mark about Sunday. A spell of wet and windy weather is likely, particularly in the south, but there is uncertainty about the track and intensity of the low pressure bringing that wet and windy weather. And then it may turn a bit cooler, particularly across northern Britain through the early part of next week, and then things get pretty complicated right at the end of next week, as we shall see in a moment. First of all, though, let's deal with the relatively easy spell of weather over the next 3 or 4 days. Easy, but it's not looking pretty out there. Low pressure is the dominant feature. It'll send spirals of showers across the country through Thursday, Friday and Saturday. The isobars always close together across the southern half of the UK, so that's where it'll be windiest, which means the showers will move through. Further north, close to the centre of the low, the isobars are further apart, the winds will be lighter, which means particularly by Saturday the showers will be quite slow moving and possibly heavier and thundery. Notice there is another area of low pressure just waiting in the wings. More on that in a moment. But certainly, yes, the next 3 days or so, it's some sunshine, yes, but also plenty of heavy showers, often quite gusty in the south, but the winds coming in from the Atlantic, not particularly chilly. Temperatures by day around or a touch above average, and the nights certainly looking fairly mild. Then the big uncertainty comes at the weekend for Sunday's weather chart. This area of low pressure, the one we saw earlier, will be approaching. It will bring some wet and windy weather, but the exact position and the exact timing still open to doubt. Now, it's really important, this area of low pressure, because with the isobars squeezing close together, you can imagine that could bring some strong winds. Now, that's especially important this weekend because the tides are very high, some of the highest tides of the year through this weekend. And with low pressure and strong winds, it could emphasise and exacerbate some problems at coast. So there is the risk of some coastal flooding as this low moves in, but the timing, whether it coincides with the highest tides and the exact position of the low, and the direction of the winds will be crucial. Now, this is just one computer model. This is the Met Office computer model charting for Sunday. But when we get to medium and longer range forecasts, we don't just look at one computer model. We have a few different computer models, and we don't just run them once. We run them several times. And that's what I'm going to show you now to show the uncertainty for Sunday. This is called a Dalmatian plot for obvious reasons. This is the European models chart for Sunday, the Dalmatian chart for Sunday. And don't worry too much about the detail, but what I'm showing you here is just the uncertainty in the position of these spots. Each of those spots is an area of low pressure. So that low that we saw earlier, by running the model lots of times, could be almost any of these positions as it crosses the country. So I'm just showing the uncertainty, the spread, if you like, of the different possible outcomes for Sunday from the European model. And the different colours represent the different intensities. Again, you can see there's quite a range there. So there's a lot to be played for on Sunday, but the main themes are that the low pressure is likely to be across the southern half of the UK. And this chart is representing that in the rainfall amounts, the probability of rainfall amounts for Sunday, the probability of seeing heavy rain, and the greener colours, a greater chance of that. So you can see that it's across the southern half of the UK where we've got highest chance of seeing some heavy rain on Sunday, whereas further north, a greater chance of staying dry. So some uncertainty about the timing and the intensity of that low, but it looks like bring a wet and windy spell, certainly across the south, sometime during the weekend. What happens beyond that? Well, that low pressure should be scooting away. As it does so, well, a couple of things. Notice the isobars are still pretty close together, so there could be some strong winds down the eastern side, and with the tides still high, that is something we need to keep a close eye on. But also the direction of the wind coming down from the north, bringing colder air as that low clears away. So there are signs that, yes, it may well turn quite a bit cooler through the early parts of the new working week. But how long that cold air stays, how far south it gets is open to doubt, because there's another area of low pressure which will cut off that cold air and bring in some warmer and more moist air from the Atlantic. So it's a bit of a battleground the early part of next week. It looks like it could turn a little colder, particularly so across the north, whereas in the south, well, it may turn colder for a time before further outbreaks of rain spread in. So that covers the first half of next week, pretty much, with that scenario. What happens after that? Well, as I said at the start, it gets even more complicated thanks to what is currently a hurricane, Hurricane Lorenzo. It's way out in the Atlantic, it's not really near any land at the moment, but in a week's time, it could be drifting a little bit further north. There's always a lot of uncertainty when we deal with hurricanes, or ex-hurricanes, as they will be approaching the United Kingdom. This is, again, a European model scenario for next Thursday. The black line's the surface pressure chart, and you can see a deep area of low pressure. That is what's left of Hurricane Lorenzo at this stage. The yellow, well, that's the jet stream. Why am I showing that? Jet stream usually drives areas of low pressure. That's how we describe the jet stream. But sometimes, particularly when you have a highly energetic system, like an ex-hurricane, well, that can affect what's going on higher up in the atmosphere. And in this scenario, the European model for next week, well, it looks like what's left of Hurricane Lorenzo may affect the jet stream, pushing it further north. But that's just one computer model. Another one has a similar scenario for the same time zone, but some subtle differences. Here, Lorenzo's a little further south, and it's not really interacting with the jet stream. The jet stream is staying further north and powering further areas of low pressure across the UK. So just an idea, flavour for combinations that could happen towards the back end of next week. We could see that area of low pressure that was Hurricane Lorenzo, bringing its energy, interfering with the jet stream, pushing the jet stream perhaps further north. We call this amplifying the pattern. And in this scenario, that would allow high pressure to build across the UK, calming the weather down for the end of next week, perhaps bringing some sunshine, misty and cool mornings. But wouldn't take much. A subtle shift in that area of low pressure, not interacting with the jet stream. The jet stream continues to track across the UK, and we'll continue to see further spells of wet and windy weather. So yes, a lot of uncertainty about the end of next week. Nothing unusual about that, but it'll be certainly fascinating to track and see what happens with that ex-hurricane. Best way for you to stay up to date, of course, is to follow the Met Office on social media.